Set aside everything you think you know about Confucius. Some people might know him for his moral philosophy and his legacy as a documenter of history. At one time, though, Confucius was a political upstart who shook the state of Liu to its core, making many enemies in the process. To understand Confucius and how this happened, one must first understand the Zhou dynasty which preceded him. The time in which Confucius born is known to us as the Spring and Autumn States period following the Zhou dynasty. This was a golden age of bronze, ding production, poetry, and stability. By the time Confucius was born, this empire was far less stable, and the once huge empire had disintegrated into a patchwork of smaller dukedoms with only nominal power invested in the centre, a small area run by the Zhou dynasty ruling family. They only really clung on to power because people still held it in reverence. Now, when Confucius looked around at his own state of Liu, he saw even further fragmentation. In the state of Liu, there was a Duke Ding of Liu, but in reality, power was further divided by three very powerful ancestral clans with their own independent power bases. The first family was the Ji clan, and this Ji clan held a position in court as the minister over the masses, who was also the prime minister. The second family was the Hmong clan. This family held the position of minister of works, and the Shu family held the position of minister of war. Eventually, after his own tough upbringing in which both of his parents passed away before he reached adulthood, Confucius rose to the position of Minister of Crime and was known for his traditional outlook, and by that time had many followers. Confucius desired to return authority to the Duke Ding of Liu and considered long and hard about how to go about doing this. He observed and saw that these three families really held the power. At the same time, they benefited from the order in which they deferred to the Duke himself, who held symbolic power. They could undermine him, but they couldn't outwardly oppose him, as the status quo was the guarantor of their position. And Confucius noted that each family held sway in one of the cities outside of the capital, and could hide behind its walls if they were threatened. Therefore, it was the walls they independently had which were a tool of their independence from the centre of the Duke. Confucius made his move and proclaimed all walls outside the capital were to be razed to the ground. The Duke would supply military support should their New Kingdom neighbours attack. What need they of walls? These powerful families were in a tough position now, refused to comply, and they were outwardly ignoring the will of the Duke. Comply and they undermined their own positions. This made him powerful enemies, and when it was time to dismantle the walls, the head of the Hmong family was reluctant to have them torn down, even though the Viscount Hmong Yi had promised to raise the walls and given his written word that he would not interfere with the attempts to bring them down. He went back on his promise. Confucius had exposed himself to the vengeful lords, especially when the Duke Ding of Liu in 498 BC was himself unable to raise the walls. Sima Qian, in the records of the Grand Historian, records that the final straw came when a distracted Duke Ding wallowed in the pleasures of 80 dancing girls sent to him, and also forgetting to send a portion of the sacrificial meat on a symbolic day of significance. Confucius took this as a clear sign that he wasn't wanted. He left the state of Liu for 15 years to wander around all the other warring states seeking powerful patrimony, which never came, only returning when the head of the powerful Ji clan had died. This was how Confucius made enemies. And it's all depicted in the film Confucius, starring Chow Yun Fat as the man himself, Confucius.